All right, I got a wild one for you. So, what obligation, if any, are police under to save a person from a burning shed where the guy is being potentially burnt alive and he's screaming for help? It gets a little more complicated than that. Let me tell you the backstory. My name is Anthony Bandiero. I'm an attorney and senior legal instructor for Blue to Gold Law Enforcement Training, bringing you to a roadside chat. All right. So, this person has a warrant. They go to serve the warrant. A search warrant on the person, okay? Not an arrest warrant, a search warrant. And it leads the person barricading himself in a shed. During the barricade, he flashes a handgun and states that he has a makeshift bomb. Okay. Now, he also says that if the police try to enter, he will blow the shed up and also the cops with it. Well, finally, to try to solve this situation or, to bring it to an end, to terminate it, they put tear gas in the shed. This causes this guy to start a fire in the shed. Now there's a fire and the guy is burning in there and he's screaming, right? Now, the question is, do we have a obligation to enter that shed and save him, or are we going to watch him burn? This is a very traumatic situation. I can only imagine, watching this and so forth and what's going through these cops' head. But the reality is that the law here seems to be pretty settled. That the first thing is that there is no, this guy, appears to have committed suicide in a sense, right? There's no crime there being committed, but even if there was, it wouldn't change the outcome here. But the first thing is that there's no statute in Indiana making suicide a crime, so he's not committing a criminal act by doing this. This would potentially be an in custody death, because when they introduced the tear gas, this was a use of force, right? A physical force with the intent to subdue. So it seems like it would fall under Torres v. Madrid, U.S. Supreme Court 2021, where the Supreme Court said that even if the person is not submitting to your seizure, if you apply physical force to somebody with the intent to subdue, that is a seizure. So it seems to me when you gas somebody, that could be considered, that's a Fourth Amendment issue. You're trying to, seize that person potentially. This also may be a in custody death per the Death in Custody Reporting Act of 2013. So that kind of maybe has a few rules to it. So of course this is of constitutional dimension. But at the end of the day, though, we still have no obligation to save somebody who is trying to kill themselves, right? Or is putting themselves in danger. This really is a case where the Supreme Court addressed this issue in a case called DeShaney versus Winnebago County. What happened there was a tragic story where a father beat his son into a coma, and I believe that it was a lifelong coma. He never got out of it, and the social, services, right? Like CPS, they were being told by the mother that the father, I think they were separated, but the father was beating her son. And they were negligent, apparently, in the response. They didn't do anything. They didn't follow up. They didn't, force this kid to go and get examined and so forth. And at the end of the day, this kid, suffered this lifelong injury. And I guess the argument was that if the CPS would have done their job, this kid would have been potentially saved from this abuse. Well, a lot of bleeding hearts in here, right? You can only imagine what the jury would want to do here. They'd want to give money, to the kid for his care, and give money to the mom for, her loss of her son and so forth. But the Supreme Court said that the government has no legal obligation to save people. There's no due process violation for not acting. And it really has to be that way, because imagine if we don't have this rule, then people are going to sue police officers for, taking too long on a coffee break and not answering their calls for service, or negligence, or driving too fast and crashing, and driving too slow and not getting there on time, when they somebody could have been saved. That's why I like to say, I know, law enforcement and firefighters are known as the first responders, but let's be real. Not in my world. Police are not first responders or second responders. People have an obligation to handle their own safety first, right? I am my own first responder. These firearms and so forth are just an example of that. Like, I don't depend on police to save me and my family from harm. They depend on me to do that, and depend on myself. And I guess the point is that if I fail at that job, and or I'm not capable of defending myself, then at the end of the day, it is what it is. But I can't go and start suing the government, and that's really, and I can sue the government, but I probably shouldn't win with these facts, and that's what's going on here. At the end of the day, DeShaney kind of tells us that these officers have no obligation to put their own lives at risk and to go in that shed. Now, this guy, has a death wish. I mean, literally. I mean, how do we know he's not able, or he's not? This is not a setup where he's looking to go out in a blaze of glory. Excuse the pun, and to bring these cops with him, right? So he gets these cops to fall for it. They go in there trying to save this man from burning alive, and then he starts shooting them, and just the whole thing just gets really complicated, dangerous, and so forth. It is what it is. Now, cops are going to have to make a decision whether or not this is going to endanger other people, whether or not this fire is going to spread. Firefighters are not going to go in there. You know that. I mean, they're going to wait for you to give the all clear, so they're not going to go put their own lives at risk. And so this is a very tough situation. But I guess if this guy was putting other, domiciles and so forth at risk of fire, they would have to, basically go in there with some shields and so forth and just take care of some business and try to put it out, and potentially get into an altercation. But the best thing for him to do, if, this guy did not want to die in that shed, and get burned alive, is for him to exit that shed and stop, drop, and roll, and hopefully the cops can save him, right? But it's not to stay in the shed. I mean, at this point, he does have an option. There's another example of this. You can see on YouTube, there's a couple of cases at least where people have tried to escape the police, and they jumped into water, and they were treading water to the point of exhaustion. They started sinking, and they're like, please save me, save me, save me, right? And the police are watching it because they don't have a boat. They don't have, rescue equipment. They don't have any lifeguard equipment. The firefighters are not on scene, and so forth. And the guy drowns, and it's very hard to watch. The public obviously gets confused by it. So why couldn't you save him? Some people do, at least, that don't understand the dynamics going on here. But the answer is very simple. I mean, I would absolutely never in a million years would I go out and save somebody from drowning as a police officer with no survival equipment whatsoever. Absolutely not. Would never do it in a million years, because I know what's going to happen. The guy is going to take me down with him. I cannot float both of us. Plus, an officer is not equipped. Even if you take off the gear and so forth, you probably still have a vest on. You're not going to be able to, probably take all that off, and your boots and all this other gear. The point is that it's a very bad situation to be in. And if you want just an example of what I'm talking about, look at those situations. Yeah, you can sue, but I don't think the victim's family there should get one penny from the taxpayer for their, spouses, family members' stupidity, and for putting themselves in that situation when they, and not actually, in some of these situations that I've seen. At least one of them, like the cops were telling them to swim back to shore, and the guy just would not do it, and he ended up drowning to death. So at the end of the day, that's where we're at on this very tough situation. And you want to think about the trauma that our brothers and sisters go through when they go to work. This is just part of it. I mean, this is obviously very traumatic, but legally, it's the right answer to not put yourself in needless harm's way where, two or more people die instead of the one who did this in the first place. If you like what we're doing here at Blue to Gold, like, share with your friends, right? Subscribe to the channel. And until next time, my friends, stay safe and make good case law.